Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Just One Thing with Swell. My name is Brooke Battle, and I'm really glad to get uh, to present to you guys today about financial reporting. But before we get started, I did want to briefly talk about how to use this program called Sessions. Um, and at this point, you should be seeing a screen that says Navigating Sessions. Sessions is a program a lot like Zoom that we've adopted because it has several features that we think are interesting and worth trying. So, but let me give you a little bit of information about how to navigate Sessions at this time. So, first of all, on the left-hand corner, one of our favorite features is an item that says Show Agenda. If you click that, it'll pull an agenda in on the left, and that will outline our conversation. It has links to a few resources, slides, and things like that that will support our discussion and tell you where we are in the program. On the right-hand side, there's several features that you have available to you. There is a Q&A section where I invite you to ask questions of me during this time. And so just put them in there and I will see those. We also love emojis. The thing about webinars that doesn't actually align with the way we are at Swell, we're such a warm, we think of ourselves as a really warm company, and webinars are very one way. So obviously feel free to reach back with an emoji, anything to add some humor. We're all for that. So on the right-hand side, there's also a notes feature. These are only available to you. And so you'll be able to take notes for yourself and have those notes as well as this agenda and the recording following this for any future work that you need. And should you need to leave, there is a little red box with a tiny little arrow in it where you can exit and leave the session. And I, for one, think it looks like you're ending the session for everyone. You're not, so don't worry about that. But if you need to leave, click that button, and we'll be sorry to see you go. But so glad you're here today, and all. So a little bit about who we are, even though I hope you know. If you're here, it means you're a client. But Swell is a company that started 12 years ago. We're dedicated to nonprofit online fundraising and events in particular. So we try to be great at that and provide you with great support, unmatched by any others in our space. So we really try to come at the serving you differently because we were once in your shoes, so we know what that's like for sure. So, but on to today's topic. Today's topic is all about pulling reports from Swell and Stripe. And it's one of the more important functions of the process. Obviously, this goes to the reconciliation and accounting process. You may find yourself wanting to pass this along to someone on your team who handles this, but we really want to provide you with this kind of support, and particularly because a lot of this occurs post-event. So we'll get right into pulling reports from Swell and Stripe. And so now you should be seeing the first step in that process is to go to the Swell dashboard, which I will in a minute. You go to the Swell dashboard and click Transactions, and in the top right-hand corner is a download button, and that will download the transaction report that you see on your screen right now. A few things about this transaction report that I wanted to point out, since we're having a minute to really unpack the transaction report today. And so what I wanted to point out were a couple of things. On the transaction report, depending on the event, you see different things. You may have a lot of blank columns, for example, depending on the type of event that you are hosting. This particular report does have a lot of blanks, and I'll go to what those blanks are for and all. But the first thing I wanted to highlight are columns E and F on this Excel download, and that is the product ID and the product name. So in the case of a ticket purchase, a table purchase, a sponsorship, it will tell you the name of that product, and that name is coming from what you named it in the system. So that can help you discern particularly the sponsorship levels or golf events that have a lot of different things like mulligans and things like that. This is where you can, through your naming process, create that accountability on the back end to know what someone purchased and when. So that's a tool there that some of those who get a little deeper into that use. The next piece I wanted to highlight, because first name, last name, and email are pretty self-explanatory, are items columns K through, let's say, O. These are the referring attendee name, the team name, table number, and table name. And what that is doing is linking up every transaction in the system to the person who brought it in. Think of it as a soft credit. So if I was sitting at your table, and here's a great example of that. If you look down, you'll see there are a couple in my name where I've made a donation, and it's going to the battle table. And that's because I'm seated at the battle table and I made a gift. And so it will show you where that goes. There's in fact an event going on right now with a lot of accountability around that, where table captains have invited their guests. And so when that nonprofit downloads their report, every transaction is going to have a referring attendee name here. It's going to have the attendee table and even the attendee table number. And so you can create a lot of accountability and a lot of good data right here, depending on the referral process. But that is what that means. In the Swell dashboard, if you need to change a referral, that can be done in the transaction. And I'll go to that and make sure I show you that. So you can always change these in the dashboard if you see something that needs to change. So. And then on the second half of the spreadsheet, you see the mailing address, the billing address, if we collected it. I do want to point out a number of blanks on this form. And all of you probably are experiencing blanks on your form. And that is because our default at Swell is that if someone is on a mobile device, we do not ask them for their billing address. We only ask for the zip code in order to process the gift. We do have a setting that if you need to require that someone gives you their billing address in order to make a gift, we can turn that on for you. But we know the data tells us that it slows people down and it causes them to exit their transaction sometimes. So if you don't have addresses, that's because that means they were on a mobile device and gave in that way. Moving ahead here to column AD, which is titled REF, reference. This is the column that lets you know and answers the question for a lot of people: was this an online transaction? And when you go to pull your data out of Swell, and maybe you've entered a lot of offline entries, offline sponsors, offline checks, and you come to reconcile, sometimes people want to clear this out, delete it. I say delete their blanks. If it is blank, that tells you that you entered it or someone on your team entered that transaction. If it has a number in this column, then that is the reference code from the payment gateway. And that's the number that ties those two things together. So you can always see and tie a Stripe transaction in here to your Stripe transactions. And I'll show you that through this column. But more often than not, it's answering the question, is it an online purchase? So, again, if it's blank, it was an offline entry. So I do want to discuss the next columns a little bit. They're not as widely used, but they're used by some. So columns AE and AF let you know if it's a recurring transaction and the recurring date. So if they turn that on, it will say yes, that transaction is going to recur for hereafter until it's canceled. So columns AG, AH, and AI are all related to our pledge process. That pledge process can be turned on the donation page. And that gives somebody the ability to make a commitment to you without a credit card transaction. And so the first column tells you, yes, it was a pledge. The next column is pledge received. It tells you, yes, that pledge was received. So good. So you're set there. And the next one is the checkout link. So if you want to reset and resend them the pledge, the checkout link, you can see there's a little checkout option there for you. So you can send them their link to check out so that it will record that. You can also go into the transaction in the dashboard and close out a transaction there as well. And then finally, the date created and date updated list. The main question we get here is that this date is on the universal time code, which, depending on where you are in the country, in the US, that's anywhere from 6 to 8, 9 hours ahead of you. I once had a client email and said, I know you're good, but now you're telling me what I'm going to do in the future. You can't be that good. So, and of course she was being funny, and she's a friend. And if you want to, we have a great little tool on our support desk that's here in the resources area. And it gives you the Excel formula to convert that to your time code. So, so whatever time zone you're in, you can convert it into your time zone if you'd like to do that. We've become very good at subtracting those numbers. And obviously, so I wanted you to have that resource to convert that time if you need that. So that's a bit about the Swell transaction download, and always happy to answer any questions about that. And so next we're going to talk about Stripe. Actually, I think let me go really quickly to the Swell dashboard. Since I spoke about it for a minute, I'm going to go to the Swell dashboard really fast just to show it to you and to go over a few things. So I'm in the Swell dashboard. You would click on transactions and then click on this download button, which would download all of your transactions into the spreadsheet I just spoke about. On this dashboard, you can tell an offline and an online transaction because the offline transactions have an X beside them. And that's because we allow you to delete those. We allow you to edit those if they were offline. But if it's online, like this first one, that's likely a test donation, you cannot come in and change the amount or change the date on anything. But you can, as I referenced earlier, change the referral. And I'm actually going to put her on her own referral. So, and this means that it will go to her and go to her table, which would be really nice. So, and that's how you change the referral. And now the referral in that transaction will show her name, her table, and where she's seated in the event. And so now back to Stripe. And so we should be back to showing you the report screen here. So in Stripe, they have incredible tools and incredible, and you can make a report, say, cut just about any way in Stripe, which is great, but also overwhelming. So I just thought I would show one of my favorite paths for reconciling payouts in Stripe. So obviously you log into your Stripe account, and in the left-hand bottom corner, there's a tab that says reports. And click that tab and you come to this page where you can see several of your reporting types. The one that I'm going to focus on today is the payout reconciliation report. But I encourage you to play with the balance report. But a lot of the functionality and the user experience is the same. So once we go through one, you'll find that this translates well into all the other reporting sections of Stripe. And so, excuse me. So in the payout reconciliation report, when you click that, the first thing you need to do is check the date range. The first time I clicked into this payout reconciliation report, it said zeros everywhere. And you kind of panic. You think, wait, but I know I've had transactions come in. And that's usually because it defaults to the previous month. And if you're new on the system or you just launched an event, it's pulling, you weren't active during that time or something. So if your eye goes here to the numbers and you don't, and it looks like it might not be right, let your eye go to this area where it has checked the date range. And I'm going to go to this live in a bit, but you can go year to date, month to date, custom date settings, but line up this payout reconciliation report with when you get your distributions and when you are reconciling how much has come into your account. So if you do this on a monthly basis, then I would make that, 1 month, and then you can line this up with everything that's been deposited in your account for that same period of time, which is a nice way to line that up. But do check that date range. On all of these reports, there's a download button. And I personally love to work in Excel and look at a good spreadsheet. So all of those reports also have download buttons on the right-hand side. But when you pull up the download report, when you click download, it's going to give you this window. And I wanted to highlight something that a lot of our clients have run into is that, and I put an arrow to it, right in this reporting category. The download reports in Stripe default to a very small number of columns, like 9 to 11 columns. And all of you want more information than that. And so if you don't take a look at this, reporting, I always say all of the columns, Here you can look at which columns I could actually click on that and show you which columns it's pulling in. And if you have more time, you can go in and customize that, and it will default. It will always remember what you did the next time. So once you do it once, it will remember. So the first time you do this, check this reporting category though, and then click download to download all that you need. And so now we'll go to Stripe Live and we'll go into a few things. So let me share that screen. And don't worry, we're just in a test account. And so none of this is real. You will see transactions and things, but these are all things we've just pushed through the Swell system in a test mode. So none of this is real. So, and so again, you're able to click on reports, which I've already clicked on, click on payout reconciliation, which I mentioned. And this is a great example. So it's default, it's on last month, and there weren't any test transactions here last month. I believe all the test transactions in preparation for today are this month. So if I do month to date, you're going to see all of the test transactions we've pushed through here this month. So and I love the balance summary, because if you're new to Swell and you start at 0, then every month you're just going to be able to go back and foot to this starting balance and ending balance every time. It's a really good, quick way to reconcile your fees and your expenses on these funds, which I know is something that our clients want to watch very closely. But again, I'll hit this download button. I'm going to click that and show you. And if I had not already done this, like it defaulted to charges. I always change that to all so that I could see charges and refunds. And here it would have defaulted to just 11 columns in this report. And I think it's really nice to have all 65, but I could also show those and come through, and I could unclick a lot of these. A lot of these are blank. And so over time, you might want to unclick some of these. I just default to all of the columns. And then you click download, and it's going to download every itemized transaction. That is going to itemize every transaction that comprises these 8 charges. It's going to outline the fees, and it's going to get you to a total payout. And I'm going to go to that report next. But this is also want to show a couple things. You can also schedule certain reports. I can't do that when I'm in test mode, but you can schedule reports to be emailed to you so that you always have this set up to email to you on a monthly basis, weekly basis. I do think it's nice, again, if it lines up when the Stripe distribution occurs into your account, and then you can see all of those lined up there. While I'm here, I do want to go through how to refund a Stripe transaction because we get that question a good bit. And so right here, I'm just going to go back to, I'll just go to the home screen here, because that's often where you are starting also. So I'm here on the home screen. It's told me the gross volume for the month and all. And then I'm going to hit payments. You could also hit customers, but I just like to hit payments. And here in payments, particularly if it's occurred recently, you can usually see those payments all through here. So if someone called up and said, oh, I accidentally, which is what this looks like, I accidentally purchased 2 sponsors to the 10th annual dinner. Can you refund one? And so I could come in here to this transaction. I clicked it. I didn't have to click it. There are actually 3 dots. I'll go back and show you. There are actually 3 dots to the right-hand side right here. And I could refund it right here. And it doesn't even refund the entire transaction. So I could have said, oh, I really meant to do the 1,250 one. So I'm going to refund half of this. In fact, half of this is $1,250.50. Requested by the customer, and you could add some detail here and then refund half of it. You could refund all of it, and that refund will show. And so that's how you refund. Then a refund amount will show here, and you can also then send the receipt of that refund to the customer. Every time someone comes through Stripe, it creates them as a customer though in your account, and you're able to view that customer as well. And so here I could see everything that this customer had created in our system and all, which is helpful sometimes. Additionally, if you're trying to line up transactions between Swell and Stripe, I know I mentioned that reference column that had the code from Stripe. then you can also see that reference, that same reference number here in the payment ID. So that payment ID also lines up with your Swell report, and that's where these two line up as well. So, are there any questions? I'm going to stop my share and go back to. I'm happy to answer any questions. We just double check really fast. Okay, this is good. Thank you. And so after that, I'm now going to show you the reports. And we're going to go to a window here. Give me just a second. And I'm going to show you a report in our system. I'm going to show you a report from Stripe. And this is that payout reconciliation report that that I was just discussing. And we will get right back to it as I pull that up. Here we go. Okay, I think you are seeing, I hope you are seeing the transaction report in Excel. I'm going to just double check this really fast and make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Give me just one second. Here we go. I'm just going to do this way. Now I know you're seeing my screen. So thank you for that pause. So this is the payout reconciliation report as downloaded from Stripe. So it looks like Greek initially because it starts out with a lot of these identification codes. And again, you could turn some of those off in your download if you didn't like to see it. But this will tell you your payout effective date. Like this is the date and time that's the date and time that this transaction was sent to your bank account. So this tells you which payout it was in, which is often helpful if you're doing daily payouts. This is telling you when that transaction was created. And so this is the day when it came in. And then it tells you the currency that it's in. This is the gross amount that was paid. And this is the fee that was associated with that payment. And this is the net distribution. So if you total that up, that should foot to your payout for that day, if you're doing this daily, weekly, and all. If you keep going, the description for that is here. And so if you wanted to sort this in a certain way based on different categories you have, then you'd be able to see that it's a table purchase and a donation. In this case, this is a table purchase and a donation for $26. This is a ticket purchase and a donation for $26 down here. So you can see exactly what was in that transaction. One thing to note is that in Swell, the table purchase and that donation actually create two transactions in Swell, because we know you want to be able to account for that differently in their receipts. And so we receipt differently for that. But in Stripe, it came in as one total amount. So that's showing you that total amount. And if we go a little further, you get the customer email, the customer name, and any information that Stripe captured on that customer. Here is a zip code. And here I highlighted column AV because here's that payment intent ID. This is that same code that would be in the Swell report. And so you would be able to line up, if you wanted to go into that detail, everything that's in Stripe and everything that's in Swell. I can assure you you can't get through Swell without this payment ID. And so this is, it's impossible to create one and not the other. So, and so that's always a good control as well. One thing actually that you can also download is what they call incomplete transactions. So in Stripe, they will also show you when someone started a transaction but just didn't finish. And so you'll also see incomplete transactions. You don't see the incomplete transactions in your Swell report, but you can see the transactions that were started and not finished. Some people might call that when you exit your cart without completing it. You can see all of that in Stripe, which is always really interesting information. And this gives you just a little bit of limited information into into what they might have used. if someone's card is declined, this is a good place to like locate information on that in Stripe as well. So, so that's just a glimpse into your Stripe report. I'm going to stop my share. Again, always happy to answer any questions. I encourage you to just focus on getting the date fields right and the download, and the rest is easy. So, and all. So, and so with that, I'm just going to go back over. We went over financial reports in Swell, how to download it, and what those look like, Stripe reports, and how to support your payout reconciliation, and how to refund a transaction in Stripe. Next up, we obviously have our office hours coming up after this. You're welcome to join us if you need anything, any questions from us. The next Just One Thing is a great topic and a lot more entertaining than reporting. It's on spotlighting your champions and your fundraisers. This is a really fun topic on May the 8th. How to motivate people. I know that many of you will be excited about that. May 22nd is communication tips for your champions. So those two line up really well. So we look forward to seeing you at that. And then how to get help. You can reach us every Wednesday afternoon from 2:30 to 4:30 in our open office hours online. And so, and there should be a link to that, I think, in the menu here. Let's see. Yes. And then there's a lot of, obviously, always helpful information in our support desk. But, oh, great question. Thank you, Adrian. What is the difference between the created and the updated date columns in a transaction report? Great question. Thank you for asking that. So the created date, I'm just going to describe it, even though it may seem obvious. Created is the moment that transaction occurred, or when it was entered into the dashboard. So that doesn't change. So the created date is the same, but an updated will tell you things like if you go back into the dashboard and change the referral on it, or you make it anonymous when it wasn't anonymous, something that you can change if it was an online transaction. So that's an update. So that sometimes tells you that that you did something in there and all. So, and it can sometimes solve a mystery if you're trying to figure out when certain things occurred. So yeah, updated tells you if anything about that transaction changed and when that happened. So great question. So I find that created and updated dates are most often different with offline transactions. So you create it, then you go back to it, maybe you change it. So those are often created and updated are often the same with an online entry, unless you go back into it and change the referral. So great question. Yeah. Aha. Light bulb. So great question. Thank you for asking it. So that's great. So with that, I'll double check any more questions. That one popped up beautifully so I could see it. Okay, well, we really appreciate you guys being here. This will obviously be recorded. It is recorded and will be in the support desk so that you can come back to it if needed. So have a great day. Take care. Bye.